Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Faith Journey. How are you doing? I hope you're all doing really well today. I'm really glad that you're here and that you're listening, that you tuned in. My name is Camilla, and I'm really warm right now. It is so warm in London. I love it though. I love the heat, but to record in the afternoon, because it's quite noisy outside, I need to have my windows closed. So it's a bit of a sauna in my apartment at the moment, but that is okay. This podcast, this space was born out of my own kind of faith journey and story, one that was all about searching and having struggles as well, and then ultimately just encountering Jesus in a way that changed everything. This podcast really is for anyone who's curious or hungry or maybe even sort of wrestling with, their faith, whether you are walking closely with God already or you're unsure where you kind of stand, you're exploring maybe spirituality for the first time. Anyone and everyone is so welcome here. I really believe that faith is not just a destination. Like for me, it's been such a journey to arrive to Jesus and to come to faith. And it's not linear. It's not like the same for everyone. It's like a winding sort of road of discovery and of doubt sometimes, but also of so much hope and joy and love and grace. And I'm just here to document that. And each episode is really kind of a chance to explore what it means to live a life of purpose and what I'm discovering that meaning for myself, and to be real with God, really in the everyday moments too. So wherever you're listening from and whatever you're sort of carrying right now, my prayer is just that this space can help you to feel less alone, drawing you closer to the one who made you and who just knows you and who loves you so deeply. With that, I would probably just get into the episode straight away. So today's episode, as you probably know if you've clicked on this, is all about worship. And I've known that I wanted to talk about worship for a while now, just because it's been such a key part of my journey. But I wasn't really ready to talk about it until now. And so I really felt prompted to. When we speak of worship, I think, I'm speaking here not just of musical worship, what it means for worship to become part of our lifestyle, part of like our lives as well, our ordinary life, almost like a posture of the heart, right? Which just means like the direction in which you sort of decide to gear yourself in every single moment. It's a response. Worship is like a response to the presence of God in our everyday lives. And before I knew Jesus, before I sort of called myself a Christian, I had this longing, and especially the year prior to that, when I was really on my faith journey. So for me, it was last year. At the end of all throughout last year, I just had this ache. Like I had this longing, really deep, that I almost like couldn't put words to. It was like an unnamed longing almost, that was really guiding me and that was directing me. Sometimes I would realize that, and other times I wouldn't, and yet it still did guide me and did bring me through all of these different seasons within my faith journey. And I didn't know it then, but I was looking for something, or really someone to worship, someone that I could be in relationship with, because that is what our souls, and I've said this before on here, I think, but that's what our souls are made for. My soul and your soul and like all of our beings were made to be in relationship with the one who created us. That's why it was so deep inside of me, and like it felt so natural. It wasn't something that I had to practice or anything like that. That's really what I was being guided by, on my journey to Jesus and to finding God. And even when I explored like other belief systems or other faiths and so on, the desire for me was really there, and it was always there, and it was so strong. And I've spoken about, what this meant for me a little bit more in depth in episode 1, my testimony. So if you're curious about that, do go and have a listen. But I wasn't just chasing like a spiritual understanding, like I wasn't in my head so much. This was really like something so deep, and it was almost like I was drawn by a need to connect, to relate, to a higher presence, to a higher being, to God, to be near something that was so holy, something that felt like it could carry me, that could hold me in those moments of pain that I was really going through. Someone, that was so worthy of all of my surrender, because of this sense of holiness, because of, this grandiosity of God. I then, towards the end of my journey, then at some point realized that was God, and that God does indeed exist. And it wasn't, I didn't, if you know my story, that I didn't grow up with faith or God or anything like that in my life up until a year and a bit ago. So it was so beautiful, and it is just so beautiful looking back at how that was Jesus really pursuing me, and making me follow that sense, that calling that he just had on me. Even when I didn't know his name, or I didn't know and I wasn't following his name, I was just following this sense of longing that I had, that my soul so deep down, and that I couldn't even name, that I just had. And there's a beautiful psalm. It's one of my favorites, so poetic, and it like really describes what I felt and what I still feel. And it's Psalm 42 verse 1 that says, "As the deer pants for streams of water, so my soul pants for you, my God." Isn't this so just beautiful and so poetic? And it's like that verse was and is like how I feel, and how so many of us feel. And that's what's so beautiful about scripture, that once you start reading, and if you haven't, started that journey of reading the Bible, or maybe you've strayed away from it a bit, I really encourage you to go and read the word, because it has a way of putting into words what sometimes is so hard for us to do. As the deer pants for streams of water, so my soul pants for you, my God. Maybe you relate to this as well. Maybe you're not really sure what you're looking for, but your soul is thirsty. Like, that's how I felt. I felt like my soul was thirsty for something, for someone. That's where worship begins. That longing, that's what pushes you. That's where the worship, that sense really propels you and starts to just make you be on fire, for God. Jesus is where we get this longing satisfied. This is what this psalm is saying, right? He is the living water. He is all that, gives life. He is all that gives us life. He's the one that satisfies this thirst, because we were made to be in relationship with God. And that's what Jesus offers us, right? He offers us that relationship to the Father, that direct connection to God. So anyway, what is worship, really? Like, if you were to describe worship, what would you say that is? And I sat with this question a bit, and I think it's interesting. If you were to ask like 10 different people, you would probably get almost like 10 different answers. And for every single one of us, worship might mean something different. So many different modalities of worship. I don't think any of them are better than the other. If the aim is always to just draw nearer to God and to, worship him and give him all the glory. And there's so many different ways, right? Like singing or praising or praying or going to church or, I don't know, anything really. And I'll get into this in a moment as well. But yeah, all those can be expressions, right, of worship. And maybe those are the ones that you're most familiar with and the ones that I've spoken about the most. But I really am learning how worship is bigger than just a moment. It's really our whole life. The Bible tells us in Romans 12 verse 1, "Therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship." Like our whole body, our whole lives, not just, worship is not just reserved for Sunday. Worship isn't just a song, right? It's surrender. That's what it means. to really worship as well. It's choosing to live in a way that says, God, you are worthy of my praise. You are worthy of, me surrendering my control and deciding to follow you. And yeah, to surrender all of me, every single part of my life as well. Worship, it's also in how we speak, right? It's in how we serve people. It's in how we love. It's in how we treat people. It's how we show up, when no one is watching. That is worship to God. It's not just, the lifting hands in a worship song, which, by the way, I love. I absolutely love it. And I was literally doing it, worshiping with music right before sitting here, because that's like such a beautiful way of posturing ourselves, of putting myself in this environment, in this positioning towards God before coming on here and then recording. And so worship really is like any moment that glorifies God, I think. Like even the very small and ordinary moments, I've been really learning what that means, and it's so beautiful. And this sort of realization, this truth, really started to change things for me, because I used to think that worship was confined to music or like quote unquote spiritual spaces or like specific moments, like when you go to church, or only like, I don't know, one moment of the day, like only in the morning or only at night. And now I choose and I really look to see worship and recognize worship in every moment and everywhere. When I'm working, like especially when no one really sees what I'm doing, I know that I can offer that moment to God. And whether I'm like writing emails or I'm solving some issues or I'm helping like someone with their problems, my posture, and you don't have to say this, right? This is like your posture in your heart. This is like your mindset. This is how you are approaching that situation. It can all be worship when it's done with love, when it's done with humility, when it's done with God in mind, and with trying to be like Jesus and trying to, follow his ways and be, the person that he is calling me to be. I love worshiping and like singing, for instance, or praying or whatever when I'm cooking dinner, like after a day of work, or if I'm even like, I don't know, if maybe you're a mother and you're like folding laundry or cleaning the house or whatever it might be. If you're doing it with gratitude, like if you're inviting God in that moment, in that space, that becomes holy. That is worship. And he sees you. He sees you and he's so pleased with that. Even like conversations, I mean, the power of the tongue, right? Proverbs always talks about this, like a kind word, a moment of like active listening to someone, having a heart of compassion towards people. All of it is worship to the Lord, all of it. 1 Corinthians 10, which is a book that I'm getting stuck into now. 1 Corinthians 10:31 says, "So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do it all for the glory of God." Like whatever we do. It literally says whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, like even the most ordinary things. Like how many times do we drink and eat in a day? And in a week, and in a month, loads. And all of those moments are moments, anchors that we can use to worship God, to give him the glory. This really includes also the unnoticed moments, like the unglamorous moments, he sees everything. That's actually so beautiful that we can do that. That it's not reserved to like a particular moment during the week or a space. God doesn't want our Sunday best, right? It's so nice to go to church on Sunday. It's literally one of my favorite things. But it's not just reserved. God doesn't just meet us on Sundays in a particular church. He wants our whole lives. Like he wants and he deserves worship every single moment of our days. He is not confined to a moment, to a building. He meets us in the kitchen, in the office, in hospital rooms, on our walks. Like if you go on a walk, you can invite, God into that walk, go on a prayer walk. He can, meet you in a traffic jam. Literally any moment can be a moment of worship. And when we start to do that, all of our lives become sacred when we give it to him. Now, of course, I still absolutely love musical worship. It's such a way for me to connect to God. And I know this is true for so many people. There's just something about music, I think, that like stirs the soul in a way that nothing else really does to the same extent, I think. And this is different for different people. But I think that music reaches places in us that words alone sort of can't. It's like the soul has its own language, and music is like part of it. And there have been times when like I was standing in worship, like surrounded by others, or at home completely alone. And I just felt God's presence like wash over me, in a way that more often than not just like breaks me open. And that's a beautiful process. It's a hard process sometimes, but it's how He works in us. It's how He starts to speak to us. It's how He starts to purify us as well. Really powerful moments that I've had, really powerful encounters with Him, have very often been, in worship. In musical worship. Tears came sometimes from sadness, but also from just awe and from recognition, and from feeling like I was finally home, and I was finally seen, and I was finally met. I met that thing, that person that I was looking for, that my soul was panting for. Tears or peace, sometimes joy so fierce that really reminds me of the freedom that I have in Christ. And those moments have, marked significantly my life. There's a verse which is John 4:23 and 24. These two verses, they say, "Yet a time is coming and has now come when the true worshippers will worship the Father in the Spirit and in truth, for they are the kind of worshippers the Father seeks." And again, it's not about just music, right? It's all about the heart behind it. God isn't looking for performance. I think this is so important. Like, when going back to musical worship, it's not about the hype of it, right? It's not about like creating all this hype so that God can encounter us. Like, He doesn't need that. He's not looking for that level of performance. He's just looking for our hearts and for the purity of our hearts, for hearts that are real and pure, just longing for Him and just giving Him all the glory. And if that means shouting and singing and so on, that's beautiful. And he loves to hear that. And, whether you can like, also, I must say, whether you can, sing beautifully, or whether you can't like carry a tune for, for the life of you, God just hears the heart. He hears you anyway, and He doesn't have preferences with that. Just you pouring out your love onto Him and responding to Him. And if worship through music is like a language of the soul, then I think, our voice, just as it is, belongs in that choir, in that, unity of voices that is what also makes worship with other people, musical worship with other people, just so beautiful and so powerful. If sometimes you don't, sometimes maybe have the strength to worship, like that, with that strength, with that energy, with that level of posture of like my whole body worshiping Him, even if all you do and can manage to do is just whisper a line, or like sit in His silence and in the silence and just be in His presence, God receives that as worship as well. Something I've been learning is that worship isn't like an act, it's, as I said at the beginning, it's a relationship. We don't worship like a distant sort of deity that, demands songs and rituals and whatnot. We worship a Father. We worship a God who loves us, who like really longs to be with us, who gave His life so that we could be free. Worship isn't about earning love, right? Like, this goes back to like the core of the gospel. It's about responding to a love that's already ours, that's already been given to us, and it's just about accepting that love. And that's why we worship, because we're so loved, because we're set free. Worship draws us closer to His heart. It softens us. It realigns us. It reminds us of who He is and of who we are because of that. When I worship, I'm not just expressing love. I'm doing that, I'm absolutely pouring out my love and pouring out everything that my heart has inside and bringing it to Jesus and to God. But I'm also receiving his love. I'm also opening myself up to receive the love that the Father gives, the love that just pours out and pours into us through the Spirit. And, when we lift our hands, that's like you'll see a lot. And I remember in musical worship, like the first time I went to church, just seeing everyone like putting their hands up. And I was like, what is going on? Like, why, like, what's happening? What are people doing? And that's just like a physical posture of being like, I surrender everything. I'm like being held by you, and I'm just lifting my hands towards you. There's this sentence that we probably have heard it as well. It's quite often, but like the idea that heaven touches earth, and I think worship is a space, is a moment, or multiple moments when that happens. Worship is the space where heaven touches earth, even if for just a moment, when we get so connected to the Father and to his goodness and to that and to everything that he gives us, and it draws me so much closer every time. Maybe you're listening and you're kind of thinking, oh, I want that, that sounds great, Camilla, but I don't feel close to God right now. Or maybe you feel awkward in worship, like you don't really know how to move or what to do, or you're unsure of what to say, or how to pray and whatnot. But can I just tell you one thing that I've really learned, and that is that you don't need to perform. You don't need to perform. You just need to be honest. You really just need to be honest. That's all he wants. He wants honesty from you. He wants, God wants you to just open up your heart to him and to share with him what's going on and to just seek his presence, because then that's how he comes, in every little moment, like I was saying, in the big moments, but also when you're washing the dishes, when, you're just maybe, I don't know, cleaning your bathroom, literally. And I'm saying this because I've had these experiences really actually early in my faith journey, really early on as well. And so it's not just something that, you can feel once you're only like past a certain level of spiritual maturity. I don't think that's the case. Worship can really start with a whisper. It can start with silence. It can start with tears. It can start with a deep breath and just like being in his presence and just opening yourself up and just pouring out your love onto him, whatever way that looks like for you. God is not impressed by performance. He is moved, I think, by honesty. Yeah, James 4 verse 8 says, draw near to God and he will draw near to you. You can worship from your car, from your kitchen, from, I don't know, your bathroom floor, from the church service that you went to. Just start where you are. Just start where you are. Maybe right now, once you you finish this podcast and listening to this, maybe you can just, 10 minutes in your calendar. Just put your phone away, put everything away, and you can put music on if you want, worship music on. You can be in silence, whatever. You just invite the Spirit in and you just start to worship him. Prayer sets are something that have been really, really useful, especially at the beginning for me. There's a group that I'm sure you've heard of. It's called Upper Room. It's a group, and if you just Google it, I can link some below as well. But if you just Google Upper Room prayer set, you will get so many, like hour-long worship prayer sets. And they're just so beautiful. God will meet you there. I really, really, really believe that. So yeah, I think that's it. This was maybe like slightly shorter episode, perhaps. I'm not sure how long this was, but yeah, just thank you so much for being here. If this was your first episode, yay, I'm so glad. I hope you enjoyed this and that it felt encouraging to you. I hope this episode reminded you as well that you are so loved, you're so seen, you're invited into a life of worship, no matter where you are and no matter where you're sort of starting from. Maybe take a moment, as I was saying right now or this week, to just pause and to worship God in a new way, maybe in a place that you didn't expect, because He will come and meet you there. You were created to worship, not because God needs it, but because your heart needs it, because our hearts were made for it. Our whole life, every messy, every beautiful, ordinary moment can be an offering of love back to God, who's so much closer than you think. So yeah, until next time, keep walking close to Jesus, keep seeking Him, keep opening your heart and surrendering. I am so grateful that I got to sit here with you once again, and I will see you again next week, right here on another episode of The Faith Journey. Thank you so much, sending you so much love. Bye.